It's like many other Maamarim, it talks about different. Um, it talks about the title of our parsha, bringing from a Zohar, that it says Vayu Chayei Sarah, that the life of the years of Sarah was X amount of years, and then it concludes that it was the Shnei Chayei Sarah. And the Zohar more or less indicates, according to the way Chassidus explains the Zohar, that Sarah was being misaken and repairing what went wrong with Chava and what went wrong with Noach, actually. And both of them had issues actually with problematic Simcha. I'm not going to get into that, but essentially, the according to one opinion, the Eitz Hadas was made from grapes, and there was like a cup of wine, and also Noach had a problem with getting drunk. So, but Sarah had Simcha and Bittul. That's essentially what the Maamar is explaining and going to explain, and what we're going to see inside. But getting there, he's going to speak about how crucial and how vital Simcha is, plus the importance of having Simcha in a state of Bittul as well. So we're going to skip around a lot in this Maamar. We're going to start from Ois Beis. We understand why the pasuk concludes Shnei Chayei Sarah with an explanation what the Zohar is trying to say. After already saying at the beginning it was the life of Sarah, why does it have to conclude it was the years of the life of Sarah? So we have to first preface Mashakasav Ibdus Hashem Asavai B'Simcha, serve Hashem with joy. Sha'avodas Hashem Tzarich Liis Mitech Simcha Davke, that the avodah of a Yid Hashem has to be specifically out of joy. To such a degree that joy is from the primary and core seminal parts of our service. This is what it says in the pasuk. Since you do not serve Havai your God with joy and gladness of heart, and you will serve your enemies, that means though there was avodah, it doesn't say tachsa shaloy avatas havai lekecha, period. So you served Hashem, and you had a complete service. Mikal Malkum, still in all, kevin sha'avodah haisabli simcha, since the avodah was without joy. Lachein magial zeha einish avatas havecha. Therefore, the person is liable for the punishment of you will serve your enemies. The Rebbe in later years didn't want to speak the negative, so he just quoted the pasuk. Not tachas asher loy avadta, but he only said avadta zavai lakecha b'simcha v'tuvlevov. That's the Rebbe always brings that pasuk. We'll just skip over a little bit to 3 lines from the end of this paragraph. V'zehu, by the period in the middle of the line, v'zehu gamash metzino b'kis ve'arizal. This is also what we find in the Arizal's writings, that all the levels that are Arizal merited to have, all the great revelations and so on, was specifically, he attained it through the joy of performing a mitzvah. In other words, the mitzvahs alone that Arizal did, surely they were the greatest mitzvahs, but he didn't merit to receive all the levels and all the revelations that he received only because of the simcha of a mitzvah. And here the Rebbe says an amazing thing about joy, that joy connects us with the highest, most levels. So he says in the next paragraph, Obira, in Yehud explanation, this matter is, the ultimate purpose and intention of Hashem in the creation of the world is that Hashem desire to have a home down here below. The Inyan Hadirahu, the idea of a home is Hamshachas Atzmus Ein Sof Baruch Hu. It's drawing down the very essence of Hashem. Hamshachas Atzmus Yadei Simcha Davke, and the drawing down of Hashem's essence is specifically through joy. V'loi Aidei Havona V'Asagya, understanding, comprehension of Hashem. That's not how one draws down Hashem's very essence. Because K'aidei Havona V'Asagya toifsim rak bebchinas halakus kefishu nitfas ba'Havona V'Asagya. through comprehension, through understanding, we only can grasp that part of godliness that is able to be understood. Only through joy can we reach Hashem's very essence. So the Rebbe goes on to speak a lot about the connection of delight and joy, that through delight and joy we connect with Hashem's level of delight, that Hashem's level of delight is the highest, most level. So we're going to skip over to the bottom of the next page, Ois Gimel. V'hinei, hakli le'inyan hasimcha, what is the vessel for joy? Hu habitl. When a person has bittul, that is the vessel, that is the capability that enables a person to attain joy. The Rebbe explains the idea behind this is in Iksiv, it says v'yosvu anovim ba'avaya simcha, that the humble ones, they will grow in Hashem simcha. This means shaydei anovim magim l'dei simcha, through humility one attains joy. What's the reason? Like my father-in-law, like the Friedrich Rebbe explains in the Maamar titled by this pasuk, the Lechura Yipol Adavar, seemingly this matter is a wonder. The idea of humility and joy and happiness are two extremes, two opposite polar extremes of the emotional spectrum. Humility, it shows constraint. The person's constricted with themselves. They hold themselves back. They don't expand. They don't express themselves. They are minimizing themselves. Simcha, joy, on the other hand, is an approach of expansiveness and spreading out. How is it possible that through humility a person should attain joy? The idea behind this is the anova eina hashiflus haba mitzad pchisus hanefesh. The idea of humility, when we talk about the true concept of anova, of humility, it doesn't mean that he is of a low spiritual state. He doesn't find anything good about himself, that he finds himself to be such of a person that is of no qualities and therefore nothing but to be happy about. What is the idea of humility? It's because the person is not focused on himself. There is a lack of sense of self, as he's going to explain what that means. Though the person knows what his own advantages and qualities are, he's aware of his qualities and advantages, because that's going to be important for the idea of joy that he's going to explain soon. He doesn't consider himself something that is of significance in and of itself, because I'm so smart, or I'm so this, or I'm so that, I'm so kind, and therefore I have significance. We're not talking about a person's significance because Hashem created him and he has a mission. We're talking about the significance of the person's accomplishments or the person's potential. That's not a reason for him to hold himself significant. Well, how come? Why doesn't he feel himself as significant and important? Because he knows that all of his qualities are not by his own capabilities. This is only what was given to him as a gift from above, from Hashem. For example, the idea of faith and belief that a person has. He realizes it's not his own. And the love of Hashem, he also realizes it's not of his own. What does that mean, it's not of his own? So he says, the belief and faith in Hashem is something that's inherited from Avram. As the Chazal say, that the Jewish people are Ma'aminim b'nei Ma'aminim. We are believers, children of believers. So because Avram Avinu was the first Ma'amin, the first believer, he gave over by way of inheritance to us also the idea of belief. And in a similar vein, the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya concerning love of Hashem, V'chein ha'avim s'torah, so too the concealed love. That the Alter Rebbe also in Tanya says, Shenichel b'gam yira, it's also the innate love, it also includes in it the innate awe of Hashem and the fear of Hashem. Yerusha Avram is an inheritance from Avram. And therefore, I have nothing but to pride myself on as far as accomplishments, that I am significant because, give a look, I have belief in Hashem, give a look, I have love of Hashem. It's not my own. And so too, and all other qualities, he realized that these are gifts of above. Similar to what we find by Moshe, the Chsiv Beit says about Moshe, that Moshe was the most humble person from every person upon the face of the earth, or before every person on the face of the earth. He wasn't unaware, he wasn't oblivious to his great qualities. He realized he was the only human being that ever spent 40 days on the mountain without eating, without sleeping, in the Shemayim 3 times. It was a sum total of 120 days. He realized he was the only person in history that ever split the Yam Suf, etc., etc. He knew all of his qualities. Despite that, he was humble. How was Moshe Rabbeinu humble, knowing all of these qualities? Because because Moshe Rabbeinu thought that these qualities and advantages that he had were literally, he was given these advantages. And weren't because of his own effort. They were given to him as a gift from above. And there's another component to this, but he was humble before other people. He felt lower than other people. Why does he feel lower than other people? He could have felt that, okay, I was given these gifts, someone else could be given this gift on my level. Why would I have to be humble before someone else? So he says, the Moshe Rabbeinu thought to himself the following as well. Moshe Rabbeinu thought to himself, first of all, if another person was given his opportunities, his advantages, and so on, he would be on the same level like Moshe Rabbeinu. But again, that doesn't make Moshe Rabbeinu need to be humble even before anyone else. But he was thinking that if someone else had the advantages and the parentage and the revelations and everything that he had, it would have been done better with the gifts that Hashem gave him. So now, once we've identified what humility is, what anava is, we can understand how not only anava is not a contradiction to joy, but rather v'anava zuhi klile inyan simcha. It's actually a vessel. It is something that can contain and evoke and bring about the idea of joy. The idea of joy is specifically when he receives a gift, great wealth that he never toiled in. So when a person gets an unbelievable gift, that makes him jump out of his kalim. But if a person, let's say, earns a salary, he can get the same $100, but someone gave it to him as a gift, or a person earned it. The gift makes him be more joyous. He just smiles out for someone that's aware and senses his own qualities, meaning that he feels that I earned my stature, I earned my levels. So then his joy is not complete. Anything he has, anything he gets, he believes he's owed. He earned it. And worse is befrat kasher chasur davar. someone that believes in his own importance and value and contribution. So then, if he's lacking something, so then not only won't he be joyous, but was then he's sad because he feels that he's owed. So if something goes wrong, he says, "Why did it go wrong? I'm such a wonderful human being." The opposite, but only someone that has humility, though the person knows his own advantages and his own qualities. Still, in all, he has the sublimation and nullification, knowing that these advantages and qualities were given to him from above. If they would have given these qualities and these advantages to someone else, he thinks, like we said, Moshe Rabbeinu thought, that person would have done more with the gifts than what I use my gifts for. So then, Azaya Simcha Etzli B'Shleimus, the joy by him is perfect. First of all, Shesamach Al Kol Ma Sheyesh Bo. He's joyous and happy about everything that he has. Because he knows that he's not owed anything. Even if he's lacking something, it doesn't cause him any sadness. Because he doesn't think that he's owed anything more than what he has. But just the opposite. Even what he does have, he believes he hasn't earned it. And therefore, and he receives it and accepts it as a gift from above. Then the Rebbe goes on over here in this Maamar talking about a very high spiritual level that the Rebbe is soon going to say that's a level of tzaddikim. We'll just touch on it a little bit, and then we'll skip over to the next piece in the Maamar. More specifically, in the bittul shuklila simcha, the bittul, that is the vessel for the simcha. It's not just that the bittul is a vessel for the simcha. The bittul has to impact and inform the joy, that the joy should be without sense of self. When the simcha has an awareness of self, he feels that he's joyous and delighting in it. So because of the movement of expansiveness, like we said, in the level of joy. Together, like we know, joy breaks through boundaries. It's possible through much seit v'shtalshus there could be that the external ones, the klippas, could derive benefit from it. Since the external ones can nurse from this, it's an indication that even in the level of kedusha, it's not a total perfection. Essentially, again, I'm not going to go into this at length. Essentially, there is a level of joy and so on that the person completely loses themselves. The idea of joy is not to be preoccupied with one's existence and feeling of joy, but rather he has to have a joy where he completely loses himself in that state of joyousness. Just to give an example, I may have mentioned this by other Maamar and Shiurim that we learned. Sometimes a person, let's say, can be impressed by some type of art. He can listen to a beautiful song, or he could look at a beautiful painting, or look at Neflois Haboiri, look at a beautiful skyline, whatever. But he is aware that he is looking, or he is listening to the song, and he is going through an experience. The awareness of self is something that could lead down the road, like you're saying. It can allow for, it doesn't have to be, it could allow for eventually this sense of self to degrade into a certain amount of selfishness and klippa and so on. There is another level where a person becomes so lost in the experience that they're not even aware and sensing themselves experiencing it. And sometimes this could involve losing any sense of time. They could be listening to a piece of music, and someone has to tap them on the shoulder, and all of a sudden they jump up. They're totally lost in it. That is the ultimate level of the experience of joy, the way Chassidus speaks about it. So that's essentially what the Rebbe is communicating over here. But the Rebbe is going to say this is a very high level, and this is something that was possible before the Chayei Eitzadas. And because of the Chayei Eitzadas, he's going to explain that was something that was not possible for us to reach that level of joy, and Sarah was able to reach that. But that doesn't exclude us from having whatever joy that we could reach in our avodas Hashem on our own. So we're on the next page. We're going to skip over to Eis Dalet. V'hine kol zeh, all of this, that the person has a state of joy without any type of sense of self, who say that avodah kfishu mitzad habriya ba'ofen she'olam ilui nivra. It's the order of a person's service, the way it is from the perspective of the creation, in such a way that the world was created complete. In other words, the world was created perfect. And in a perfect world, as the expression goes, that in the perfect world, the godly service has to be in a way of a godly joy, and a godly joy means, a divine joy means, that there's no sense of self. This is something that's applicable to everyone, because this is not a matter of going like beyond and above the letter of the law, but as the Rebbe established at the beginning, that joy is a core part of the service of Hashem. As opposed to after the sin of the Eitzadas, then it's possible that the joy should be in a way that one senses themselves joyous. And the Rebbe says, what does it have to do with the Chayei Eitzadas? The Inyadua, it's known Chayei Eitzadas Be'inyan Haragosh. Chassidus explains that the sin of the Eitzadas was not that all of a sudden they became aware of bad activities, but rather they became aware of a sense of self that in even good activities. Like it says, the woman saw that the tree is good for eating, it's desirous for the eyes, and the tree is desirous to lahaskil, whatever that means. Chassidus explains that they got a sense of awareness and feeling and being conscious of themselves. This means though God Gan Eden was only possible for him to have spiritual types of understanding. The sin was that he wanted to have haskolas. He wanted to have him, the one, to be the understanding person. That the haskola was in a way of, again, sensing himself. Through the idea of this type of feeling became a possibility for the klippos eventually to nurse from this energy. Let's skip over like 4 lines to the middle of the line that begins Hoisa. That's 5 lines from the bottom of the page. Move on. And for this understood, that after the sin of the Eitz Hadas, Simcha ba'avodas Hashem, also the joy in the service of Hashem. It's in such a manner that it could be in a sense that he feels himself, that he senses himself. Since when the joy is in a way that senses himself, it could be the klippos could nurse from it. It's impossible that every single yid should have the ultimate and perfect state of simcha that we're talking about here in this Maamar. Not every mind can handle this, that he should have a godly joy without any sense of self. It's only tzaddikim have this, as opposed to Eitzel Shar B'nai Yisrael by other Jews. There has to be the simcha in an internalized fashion, but along with the simcha, there has to be something that has like checks and balances on it. Externally, there has to be the awe and the acceptance of the yoke of heaven. Like it says, you shall rejoice with trembling. What the Rebbe means to say is not that you can't express joy outward, but what he means to say is we have to be disciplined in our joy. We have to make sure that we don't lose control and do things during our joy that would chas v'shalom lead us to transgress Torah. When a person has a level of joy the way it was before the Chayei Hadas, the way there was no sense of self, so the joy would never have led chas v'shalom to a person transgressing Torah b'shas ma'aseh. But nowadays, because of the Chayei Hadas, because of the sense and awareness of self that was brought into the world, which wasn't present before the Chayei Hadas, we need to be careful with our joy to have the discipline to know, as they say in Yiddish, vu ein and vu ois, how to stop it from getting out of control. So the Rebbe says also that this is something that's like a question: how can you have both things together? Joy means like breaking barriers. Discipline is about controlling yourself. How does that happen? So he says in the second line from the top, how could it be a joining of these two matters? Joy and trembling at once. How do you do a beer bezet? It's no explanation. It's analogous to a servant that serves his master in total acceptance of the yoke of his master. He's completely nullified and sublimated to his master, that he doesn't feel himself as a separate existence. Though on his own, because of his bittul, there's no sense of awareness of self. Again, on his own, he has no sense of self. He can't even enjoy his service to his master because there's no he to enjoy over here. Because the ultimate accepting of the yoke of his master, he also delights in his service. It's not his delight. He is so bottled to the Adon, he is experiencing the delight of his master. Since the master is delighting and rejoicing in the service of the servant, Therefore, the servant also delights and is happy from the delight and enjoyment of the master. So now we can understand concerning our topic. From here is also understood in a person's service that the servant is only an analogy. Actually, is the Simcha, rather it could be both approaches of joy and trembling. Because I have a total acceptance of the yoke of heaven, that itself causes me joy. Why do I have joy? I'm so bottled to Hashem, so I realize that I have this mission, and I'm completing something that Hashem wants. He wants to have a home down here below. So therefore, I'm joyous in Hashem's joy. Like in the 12th Psukim, it says that the Yidden are rejoicing in the fact of the dira that they're making for Hashem Tachtoinim. Elosh HaSimcha B'Pnimiyus, the Simcha is internalized, meaning it's encapsulated and in a way that it's not allowed to get out of the box in a negative way. There is the idea of the Yira and the Kabbalah's oil. So the Rebbe goes on the next piece to speak about the idea about Chava and Noach, and their joy was a joy of mortgage, because like we said, the joy had to do with the wine that they were both connected with. Chava ate from the Eitz Hadas, which was, according to one opinion, grapes, and had to do with wine, and Noach got drunk with wine, and these are different problems with their misapplication of joy. Instead, Sarah is the level of bittul, and because of her bittul, she was able to impart that the joy should be in such a type of way that it is going to fix up the problem that happened with Chava and what happened with Noach, because she brought bittul into the joy. Let's skip over to the last page. That, and this is understood why the pasuk concludes and repeats after saying Vayu Chayei Sara X amount of years, Mea Shana, Esrim Shana, Sheva Shanim, it concludes Shnei Chayei Sara, the years of the life of Sarah. Why does it have to say that again? So he says, let's skip over a few lines. Says, let's skip over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines from the top of the page. The uniqueness of Sarah was that through her it was a tikkun for the sin of the tree. That the idea of the drawing down the bittul also in that which there's a sense of self. Skip over 2 lines to Ubavoida in Gilu Barada. In Avoida, that means Sarah embodied or brought about this joy with trembling. Like was explained previously, service must be with joy. Since the sin of the Eitz Hadas ruined the purity of the joy, and made that the joy can contribute to a sense of self. Therefore, the joy has to be in a way of trembling, also a lot of accepting the yoke of heaven, like the example of the servant. That his main service is in a way of accepting the yoke of heaven. Skip the parentheses. But he's also in a state of joy, because the master delights in the service of the servant, so therefore the servant as well is one that enjoys and is joyous as well. Oizain, last paragraph, through the Torah explaining in detail all the levels of the life of Sarah, which means through Inyan Hamshachas HaBittel Gam B'Murgish, that it's about drawing down the bittel even after the Chayei Tzadas, even when we have a sense of self. So every single Jew was given the empowerment to be able to do this avoid of Gambas Mana Golas, even in the time of Golas. And the time of Golas is likened to what other Marishim went through. Golas, that we were sent away from Eretz Yisrael and from the Beis HaMikdash, is similar to other Marishim being sent out of Gan Eden through the Chayei Tzadas. Though a person knows about himself that who am I to even think that I can connect with this level of Sarah and so on, we call Mokim. Through binding ourselves and connecting with Avram. Says in the Pasuk, look to the rock which you were hewn from, the Makeves Barnakartem, and the pit from which you were hacked out from, or where you chiseled out from. Habitol Avram Avichem Vel Sarah Techalalchem. Look to Avram and Sarah, the one who gave birth to you. So that look to them and that making them our models and the one who we're connecting to. Also, in the time of Golus, we could draw down the bittul of accepting the yoke of heaven. And through that, because we said before, bittul is the vessel for simcha. So through that we can have the avodah of joy. That's from the core and principal parts of our service. Because like we said earlier in the Maamar, that joy draws down Hashem's very essence. And we'll do it in such a manner that the external ones, the clippers, cannot nurse from it. Because it's accompanied also by accepting the yoke of heaven, that we are rejoicing with trembling. By days and through that becomes a home down below. That is the drawing down of Hashem's very essence.